James I was born in Edinburgh, Scotland, on June 19, 1566, to Mary, Queen of Scots, and her second husband, Lord Darnley. James was the only son of Mary and would eventually become her successor to the Scottish throne. However, Mary's reign was fraught with controversy and she was eventually forced to abdicate, leaving the throne to her infant son. James I succeeded Elizabeth I as King of England and Ireland on March 24, 1603, and became the first monarch of the Stuart dynasty. Elizabeth I died childless, and as a result, James was her closest living relative and the next in line for the throne. He was crowned on July 25, 1603, at Westminster Abbey in London. Before his accession to the English throne, James I was the King of Scotland as James VI. He was only 13 months old when he became king and ruled with the help of regents until he reached maturity. During his reign in Scotland, James faced many challenges, including opposition from powerful nobles and religious conflicts between Catholics and Protestants. James I was married to Anne of Denmark, and together they had 9 children, 7 of whom survived infancy. Their children included Henry, who died at the age of 18, and Charles, who succeeded James I as king. James I was a firm believer in the divine right of kings, which held that monarchs were answerable only to God. He believed that kings were chosen by God to rule and that their power was absolute. This belief put him at odds with the growing power of Parliament, which sought to limit the power of the monarchy. James I was a patron of the arts and literature, and his reign saw the rise of William Shakespeare and other great writers. He was known for his love of music, poetry, and theatre, and his court was a centre of artistic and intellectual activity. Shakespeare's plays were performed at court, and the king himself wrote poetry and patronised many other writers. James I was a peace-loving king and pursued a policy of neutrality in the conflicts that beset Europe during his reign. He believed that war was expensive and destructive, and he sought to avoid it whenever possible. However, his reluctance to engage in military action made him unpopular with some of his subjects, who felt that he was not doing enough to defend England's interests. James I presided over the famous Hampton Court Conference in 1604, which attempted to reconcile the Puritan and Anglican factions in the Church of England. The conference was called to address the growing religious conflicts in England and to consider the grievances of the Puritans, who sought to purify the Church of England of what they saw as Catholic rituals and practices. James I authorized the translation of the Bible into English, resulting in the King James Version, which remains the most widely used translation of the Bible to this day. The translation was a major achievement in English literature and helped to standardize the language. It also had a profound impact on the development of Christianity in the English-speaking world. In 1607 a new flag was commissioned for all ships, commonly known as the Union Jack, which referenced King James' preference for his French namesake, Jacques. James I was deeply interested in the occult and personally conducted several witch hunts during his reign. He believed in the reality of witches and witchcraft and authorized the persecution of suspected witches. The witch hunts led to the execution of many innocent people and have been widely criticized as a dark chapter in English history. James I was a keen hunter and spent much of his time at his country estates, such as Theobald's in Hertfordshire. He was an avid falconer and also enjoyed hunting deer and boar. His love of hunting was shared by many of his subjects, and it was a popular pastime among the aristocracy during his reign. James I faced numerous threats to his rule, including the Gunpowder Plot of 1605. The plot was a failed assassination attempt by Guy Fawkes and other Catholic conspirators who sought to kill James and blow up the Houses of Parliament with 36 barrels of gunpowder. The plot was discovered before it could be carried out, and the conspirators were hung, drawn and quartered. The event is still marked today as Bonfire Night on the 5th of November. James I was also confronted with the issue of religious tolerance, particularly towards Catholics. He believed in religious freedom and was opposed to the persecution of Catholics, but he was also determined to uphold the Protestant establishment in England. He issued a number of proclamations and declarations aimed at promoting religious peace and tolerance, but these were often met with resistance from both Protestants and Catholics. James I was a shrewd politician and worked to maintain good relations with other European powers, particularly Spain and France. He saw himself as a mediator and peacemaker, and he was often called upon to mediate disputes between other European powers. He also sought to expand England's influence overseas, particularly in the Americas. James I's reign saw the colonization of America by the English, with the establishment of colonies like Jamestown in Virginia and Cooper's Cove in Newfoundland. The colonies were established primarily for economic reasons, and they helped to lay the foundation for England's later empire. However, the colonization of America also had a profound impact on the indigenous population, leading to conflict and displacement. James I was known for his love of peace, but his reign also saw the persecution of dissenters, particularly the Puritans. The Puritans were opposed to many of the practices of the Church of England, and they were often subjected to harassment and persecution. James I saw them as a threat to the stability of the realm and worked to suppress their activities. James I's reign was marked by the rise of powerful ministers, particularly Robert Cecil, 1st Earl of Salisbury, Robert Carr, 1st Earl of Somerset, and George Villiers, 1st Duke of Buckingham. These ministers played a significant role in shaping James's policies, particularly with regard to foreign affairs and religion. They were also responsible for the promotion of many of James's favorite courtiers. There has been speculation that James was homosexual, and had several male lovers, including Robert Carr and George Villiers, although contrary to this James took a severe stance against sodomy using English law, stating sodomy as a horrible crime which ye are bound in conscience never to forgive. James I died on March 27, 1625, and was succeeded by his son, Charles I. James's reign was marked by significant political and social changes, including the colonization of America, the rise of religious dissent, and the growth of parliamentary power. He was also an important patron of the arts and literature, and his reign saw the flowering of English culture.